Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Von Galt, and today we talk with former physicist and author Miss Cynthia Sue Larson on the evolving discussion about the Mandela Effect. Cynthia, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
Hi, Vaughn. Such a pleasure to see you. I'm so glad we got to meet in person, too. I often think about that. More than like 10 years ago, somewhere.
So much has happened.
So much has happened. So much has happened.
Yeah.
We're still here. I'm so glad you're still here.
Well, me too. I'm glad you're still here. So bless God for continuing to keep his busy bees humming. So let's have a pop quiz. So this is a new Mandela Effect. So I'm going to pop quiz you. What was the iconic accessory that many people recall was the signature of the late Richard Simmons in his workout series, Sweat to the Oldies?
So that's a good one for the audience. If they have never heard of this, he just passed away, unfortunately. It sounded like he was doing pretty well right up to the end, but he'd been a recluse and he was coming out, posting more on Twitter and so forth. I was following him. Yeah, but if people buy a Halloween costume, this item is included, even though apparently he never wore it.
So, and what is that?
Headband. It's something that so many people think it's an iconic, classic wardrobe move. If you want to look like Richard Simmons, and come on, guys, let's get up and move.
Okay.
As long as you got your headband on, and usually people remember red or it was colorful, bright colored. It wasn't something that blended in with his hair or something.
Yeah,
it stood out.
Yeah. Now, did besides the red sweatband that he wore, did it come with matching anything else?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I don't know. I would guess that it might have had like wrist things, but I don't remember that.
Yeah. So that's how I remember it as well, because my mother had the whole Sweat to the Oldies series.
Oh, you got to see this in the house.
Yeah. So, but if you look at it now, it's not there. It's the same videos, but it's not there. It's just like Shazam,
right?
With the comedian. But yeah, I remember when he would do his dances, he would have the red sweatband to prevent him from sweating to his face because it got really hot during recording. And in the 80s, a lot of people wore sweatbands to prevent dripping of sweat into their eyes. So it was actually a functional thing. It wasn't just a stylish thing. It was a very functional thing that people
in the 80s.
Exactly.
Like a washcloth kind of a thing. If people are wondering, what was this? What do you mean? It's like, what is a sweatband?
That's what a sweatband is for you youngins. And then they always had wristbands too, just kind
because. Of elastic. It's like imagine elastic inside of like a washcloth kind of a fabric, cotton. That's what it was.
Exactly.
Except this was like red and then red. It looked really peppy. It looked like energizing. Yeah, but now apparently he never had any of that. So very strange.
Yeah, that's the newest Mandela Effect, and I recall that because my mother watched it, and when he first came out of the scene, that was the big thing. Sweat to the Oldies with Richard Simmons, and and he's doing his thing with his red bandana or red sweatband and cuffs. So, anyways, I remember that as well. So do a lot of people that I know. When I ask that question, they remember that as well. However, if you look at all the material, if you have those videos or if you look online, for example, it's not there. And supposedly he never wore it. I wonder about this because this is just my perspective, but I think the memories that I have of the former reality is a lot cooler. I think it's like I think it's cooler. I don't know. And maybe it's just my opinion, but what do you think? I mean, the
So too, because
sweatband really made it better.
it was better. Red is a brighter color. I remember there was something pizzazz to it that seems like it's missing now. If you just look at him with his whole glistening face, all sweaty, when he had that nice sweatband before, it just seemed like it was, you said, functional, not just
Yeah.
something trivial. I've got one from TV in the 70s, which is
What's
a big
that?
one for me personally. And it was every Sunday night, The Wonderful World of Disney would be on TV. And my favorite part, even be better than the show itself, it was like a 1 hour show. But even before the show, I just loved watching it because you'd see the castle, Cinderella's castle in the background. Tinkerbell would come out when The Wonderful World of Disney letters are showing up. And then she'd use her little wand to go just make the eye in
Yep.
Disney kind of sparkle. Well, now she never does that, never did that. She's not part of that, not part of the beginning of the wonderful world of Disney. There's no little Tinkerbell, not at all.
Here's a Mandela Effect quiz for children of today's generation, this generation of. So
Right.
my daughter is 9 and my son is 6. And when my daughter does coloring at school and they color their favorite character, they would color the Pikachu feature cartoon Pikachu, and they would almost every single kid would color the black zigzag on his tail.
Right.
All the kids in her classroom colored the black zigzag.
I remember that too, because my kids were into Pokemon. So Pikachu was the big character, when the Pokeball got to catch them all. And, he was the big deal.
Exactly. So the generation living right now in elementary school now draws that black zigzag on Pikachu's tail. But then when you ask him, where did you get that black zigzag? Because Pikachu doesn't have that in his tail. They're like, yes, I do. And then you pull up all of the video content that you see of Pikachu, and there is no zigzag. There never was. But for some reason, it hasn't registered that. Well, I don't know why that is, but that's how it always is. So they haven't questioned it quite yet that there is some reality shifting going on, but they know, and the whole classroom knows, that Pikachu has the black zigzag, and these are coming from little kids. So I don't think
Wow.
it's just your generation or my generation. I'm in my mid 40s now, or my kids' generation, but it
Right.
continues to be ongoing. And maybe we just notice it more because we've been around longer and we remember certain things that are close to our childhood and that we really love. So we remember it and we know for sure that's the way it is. But
Like we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and the Fruit of the Loom, the logo used to have something that it doesn't have, and a lot of people remember the basket, the cornucopia. That's how a lot of people learned the word cornucopia. It was from seeing it on the Fruit of the Loom logo. That oh, that's what that basket is. That's
yeah,
what the pilgrims have,
yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. Where did you learn the word cornucopia?
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many. I know people. I'll put on the link in the show description the last Mandela affected interview I had with Cynthia, and there's a whole series of quizzes that you can find. But if you're really good at noticing those nuances in reality that's changed from the last recall that you have, there are new ones too. So Richard Simmons is the newest one that most people are scratching their head about. Okay, I have a couple. I have a couple questions from that. It's kind of evolving from our last conversation. The first is your perspective from star seeds, which is a pop culture word. Dolores Cannon referred to them as star seeds as well, and she's a popular hypnotist in that circle. But star seeds are, or toku in Buddhism is what they call it. But basically, they're old ancient souls that have reincarnated into the human experience that has had previous lifetimes as other beings in other planets, dimensions, in the spirit realm, non-spirit realm, just all over the place within samsara, within the existence of God, if you would say. So that's what starseeds and Buddhist term toku are. There's that concept coming into the center stage when it comes to consciousness and raising humanity's consciousness into a higher frequency, a higher reality, to raise a higher reality. And then there is the conversation about ETs and aliens as part of UFO or UAP disclosure. Where does the bridge between, are we talking about the same thing, or is there like a separation between those two concepts? Where's the connection? Because I feel there is a connection.
The connection there is a connection, and it's what I'd call levels of conscious agency. So going back to when I was 5 and I thought, oh, I can finally leave this place. But what I was noticing is there was a mismatch between people's consciousness in their heads. We've got neurons in the head and the brain. We have neurons in the heart. There'd be a mismatch between the heart and the head. And then we also have neurons in the gut. And I was just looking at people who were all out of whack. Their heads and their hearts and their guts were all over the place. And they were not leading with their hearts, which is something that's so recommended by a lot of our Eastern cultures, where they say bow so your head is lower than your heart center, with that awareness. And when we lose that, when we lose the humility, then we run a sort of certain danger. But going back to your question about what's going on with these masters, these tulku, these
starseeds,
yeah. I'm using the word masters because masters were prophesied to come back. The rainbow warriors are prophesied to come back. Shambhala is prophesied to come through. So we're waiting for Shambhala, the rainbow warriors, the masters. And who are they? These star seeds, these rainbow warriors. I'm putting it all together. Like, yeah, there's something in common. And what's in common is understanding how to operate with higher levels of conscious agency, with alignment, this harmonious alignment between the head, the heart, the gut, and even higher levels of conscious agency. But some of these interdimensional beings that we might consider, oh, those are the aliens, those are the UAPs and the UFOs. When you start looking into that phenomenon, quickly you'll notice that there's a huge role of higher dimensional consciousness taking very strong, prominent role and part in the whole thing. And that is our own forward legacy. This is something open to each of us. Starseeds have a way of remembering how to do that. This is something interdimensional beings definitely remember. Our masters know how to do that, whether it's Buddha or Jesus Christ. And so I'm sure that's also the Rainbow Warrior legend as well, that they are coming, that the Rainbow Warriors will be here for Shambhala. And that's a message shared by the indigenous people of the North American continent and also in Asia. When you've got something shared like that, it gives me goosebumps. It's like, okay, well, that's definitely going to be happening then. And we're talking, I'd say about the same thing. It's like, yeah, this is going to be happening and it's very much here now. When you see something coming, it's already here now also. And the disclosure that will be happening, I think part of what's held it up is they think that they're waiting for nuts and bolts and how do we do certain things and technologies. And that's in there, that's part of it. But perhaps an even bigger part is this interdimensional part where, in other words, you can have a very personally tailored message just for me and also one just for you. And we can be receiving information almost outside of time, like it's reaching back into our past and it's playing with things that nobody else would know, but somehow they talk directly to me and they do this directly with you. That's what we're dealing with. And that's been happening with the UFO community for quite some time. I just did an event with Paula Harris in Crestone, Colorado, in the very high country, and we were looking for, we're doing the 5D contact protocol and combining information about quantum jumping on the one hand, and then contact and communion and this connection with oneness that we share, with this larger community of interdimensional consciousness, which includes a whole lot of what you might call star seeds. And are they definitely of the same nature as us? I think somewhat, but they're also much more. And we are becoming much more as well. So I think it's clear that they show up on the scene every time humanity goes through one of these dark nights of the soul that we're in the middle of it right now, clearly. And
Let me
We need
ask
the
you
help.
something. We do need the help. Let me ask you something. Dr. David R. Hawkins had explained this in his lifetime of, because he's one of these star seeds and he recognizes it because um he says that he remembers being one and living among God and being completely happy, and then all of a sudden waking up into a 5-year-old body and having recall of where he previously was. And the only reason why he didn't let himself pass away was because his father was begging him to wake up from the freeze outside. And so he spent his lifetime trying to understand consciousness, going into the mental health field and dealing with psychiatric patients in, at the time, the number one New York hospital. And then going into consciousness research. So you can't call him a quack. Because he really did make some major grounds in psychiatry or and the psych wards. So anyways, but he acknowledges that he is one of these star seeds, and there's really nothing special. They're just I don't know if you would say wired a little bit different. So instead of, I mean, they still get sick, they still get the cold, the flu, whatever respiratory things, they still get hurt. But what he said is he would usually find himself, and he said this in many of his books, he would find himself in like he was at the central station and there was a angry man with a gun and he was trying to hold everyone hostage and do a rampage there. But he had no intention of being there, but he decided to just go there randomly for no reason. He just felt the urge. So he was there and he immediately looked through the crowd that's freaking out, and he saw this one guy who was another senior gentleman, very calm, and they locked eyes. And he knew instantly this was the reason why he was pulled there, was to bring that calm energy, that higher frequency starseed energy,
Yes.
to calm the situation. Because
Yes.
and they needed two of them. And he knew that there was another star seed in that situation. And then a dog came and ran up to the gunman and licked him, and then he was seized and all that kind of stuff. And that's how. And then they went back to their day and moved on. He had no clue what he was doing there. But this happens very often, and it's happened to me. I was at the World Trade Center riot in Seattle. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I ended up getting locked in this was in college, in a bar in a dance club. They ended up locking us in until the riot was over. And then so many other situations where natural disasters and other crazy things happen. I'm not supposed to be there, but some turn of events throws me there. But I'm never in the middle of the feuding. I'm always safely tucked away somewhere in the vicinity. And that's exactly
Yes.
what Dr. Hawkins explained. He was never in the middle of the shootout
No.
area, but he was in the peripheral, somewhere where even if it went astray, he would be completely blocked. Same with the other guy that was the other star seed. So
Yes.
I hear this very often. What do you want to say about that? I mean,
I've had some experiences with the dramatic ones, like what you're talking about. Those tend to happen in lucid dreams, and sometimes I'll get confirmation a couple days later, like, oh, that was a North Korean incident that almost happened. I'm like, yeah, I was in North Korea on that day. But I'll just get a tiny little thing in the news, like, yeah, I know what happened there. But only because I went in on a lucid dream and doing exactly what you're describing, bringing that calm, going with others and feeling like, okay, we're going to anchor this. And it's very real phenomenon. In real life, I've had the experience of often showing up on the scene right after paramedics are leaving or arriving, right when something's going down, like something's already happened. And I'm the key player that notices that the woman who's just passed away, she's got a death grip, because to me it's clearly she's going into rigor mortis, but the leash she's holding belongs to a dog with a name tag. So now we know who she is, even though she has no ID. And so they're just like, get that dog away from here. And I said, you might be interested, to the paramedics, I'm saying, you might want to know the name. And I'd gone to a park I never go to. My guides had said, go to this park, read a book, it'll be quiet. It wasn't quiet. And I parked right in front of the police station. So I knew where the police station, it was really weird, only in the best possible way, because then I had memorized the address. Now I have a dog that with a dead owner. And so I'm taking the dog away from the paramedics. I threw the collar to them so they can track where she lives, who she is. But now I've memorized it and I know who to take it to. And that it was a Sunday and the police officer was not supposed to be there, but they were there. They're like, I don't know why I'm here. I said, well, I do. We've got a dog that needs help. And I know if you write this down, well, I still remember it. We'll know where, I explained what had just happened. And I was able to follow up later. The woman did pass away, but the dog was able to go to a nice farm and get really loved and cared for. So I could find all that out. Not that they tell you, but I knew how to phone and you can ask questions so you can find out without them having to say. So that's happened. And then I've also arrived on the scene when paramedics were leaving, shaking their head. And then people looked at me like, oh, you're here. And I didn't know anybody. It was a rec center, recreational center. And the director's looking at me like, oh, thank God you're here. And I'm like, okay, what's happening here? But it was, just take care of it. Yeah, well, a gentleman had passed out. He'd fainted, and he was holding a thermos. And I said, "Please drink something." I could feel he was dehydrated. And I said, but the first thing I said was, "What's his name?" And they're like, "We never asked." Like, you're kidding me. Okay, so they did.
I did that a lot.
Are leaving.
Humans. Oh.
And then the first thing I said to the gentleman was, I would have refused their help too. And then he smiled at me. And so I know his name now. He's smiling. The third thing was, please drink from your thermos, relax, breathe deeply, just sit down and breathe. You got someone coming for you? He said, yes, his wife would be there. He just didn't speak much English. It was not his first language. He was obviously new to the country. Yeah. And so anyway, long story short, everything was fine. I did check up on him and he, but it was just one of those interesting things. Again, calmness, caring, love, being on the scene in, safe. I wasn't in the midst of a crisis, sort of. I mean, it happens a lot where I'm right there on the edge, but I can see that it's all there's a beautiful, harmonious orchestration going on behind the scenes, like you noticed, and also David Hawkins and myself. And we're sort of put in position like, oh, good. Starseed on the scene, everything's fine. I was wondering, why are they saying, "Oh, good, you're here"? Like any Starseed could have dealt with this.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think, I my perspective on this whole Toku Starseed intersection into ET aliens, whatever you want to call it, higher dimensional beings or higher frequency beings, however you want to label that. And I'm sure that'll be evolving to another term as well. But my perspective is continuing to evolve as we go further into the fifth dimension and more of these Mandela effects come in and more of the kids become a little bit tuned in, and they don't think, because their parents don't think they're weird. Some of the kids are a little bit more tuned in, just kind of, this is a natural thing, it's a natural state. To think out of the box, to come up with completely new concepts with the same tools and technology. How did you come out with that? Nobody trained you to use our tools to create that. It's those kind of conversations, and I think that's what makes it different. And oftentimes, a lot of the traits with these starseed tokus is that because they're higher frequency and they naturally just have beam that higher, like they look the same. We look the same like everybody else, but it's like it's a magnet. It attracts people and also attracts a lot of success for other people. Like, I never win the casino, but everybody who I give their tickets to win the slot after I give them the tickets. I'm like, really? Seriously? Can you please give me? It doesn't even matter. So I'm not going to be the gamble ever. But that's narcissistic people and toxic people love that energy, and so there's a fine line that I think every starseed needs to learn, is to set their own boundaries, not to be a dumpster of toxic and negative and narcissistic energy, and not let their good nature be mistreated and manipulated and suck the life out of you, and so you'd be discarded, to start all over again and try to rebuild your your energy, your aura. So that's like the trap of the starseed, is that a lot of them can easily be taken advantage of by people who, for some reason, recognize this. I really like this power plant energy that's going on with you and being around you. And instead of nurturing that energy and supporting the energy and being a good partnership with that energy to build something new that's magnificent, they do the human thing, in quotes, suck the life out of you. So
Right.
what do you so for people who recognize these experiences and these characteristics and traits, is you're talking about me, Vaughn, you're talking about my life, Cynthia. What do you want to say to them as we go further into the fifth dimension and more people are purging their dark nights of the soul as they transition?
Yeah, well, I can certainly relate to wanting to leave. Like it's like this, that's what my initial feeling was. Like, I'm out of here. Because one thing we starseed Tulkos remember is how good it is between lives, right? So it's not so scary to move on to the next level. But we are needed here. I got quite a lecture. I don't know how much I went into that last time we talked, but my guides were very, they had a way of convincing me. They pointed out three things. Like, number one, people that know me best, my parents, would be very depressed if I left. Number two, I couldn't help everyone if I left. I was flippant. I was only 5, so I'm saying, oh yeah, they'll be fine. Everyone will be fine. That was my response. And then they hit me with number three, you'll be back. I'm like, no, really? What?
That gets me every time. I hate redos.
And you'll lose your 5-year head start. Like, oh, unthinkable. It's funny to me now. Anyway, but it's true. And we do need star seeds. We need the Tolkus. We need these. I know your regular person, I'm talking to them now, the ones who are listening, they may feel like, you don't need me. There's enough of people like that right now. There's a perfect distribution of starseed Tolkus on the planet. We need you to be here as long as you can stand it, because hopefully find ways to navigate. It's not easy necessarily, because there aren't that many people to look to. Like, who's living like I am, and where are the great examples? And I think there will be more examples, but right now, this is the time of the return of the masters, the rainbow warriors. This is the fire within. So it's like what David Hawkins talks about. I love his books, especially when he gets into those high level ones about enlightenment. I love it.
Yeah,
that's like,
it works all about consciousness.
It's like so perfect, because that's how to live. And so that's what to stay focused on for those of us who feel like, okay, we love how it is between lives. Okay, great. Let's bring it here now. And you might say, that's impossible, Cynthia. Look what a mess it is. I don't care what a mess it is. It's not impossible when there are enough of us with that high standard. We know we need to bring that here. And that's what we're really doing. And it's so much more than a political platform or even a political movement, because it starts right where you are. It starts in your home, starts with your family. And you don't need to be carrying placards and signs. You can if you want, but it has to start on the individual level. And that's where everything is going to be. The peace that we feel within can be profound. And that's exactly what you've been talking about. We bring that to the places we're in. We can change even things you say are impossible to change, like the Earth's geomagnetic field. Guess what? They've done studies that show that even one person can totally change the geomagnetic field. Yeah. And so right now, it's a little bit weak over North America at the moment. We can change that. Everything we can change. And that's why we're here.
We can bring reality from a Cat 5 disaster to a Cat 2 disaster, just for our consciousness, right?
We just did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get to your book. So your newest book, it came forth through illness, with a long respiratory illness after 4.5 years. So tell us, how did you stay focused while your human body was struggling to stay in this matrix?
That's a great question. Yeah, it was basically, well, first off, my guides got me started in a big rush on that book, and I didn't know what the big rush was. It was like halfway written in the first month. Like, that was 2019. I'm like, what's going on? And then January 2020, I caught, but I don't lose. How good can it get? I questioned it. Sure. I questioned everything, my identity, my connection to reality, everything. But then I just got more solid as a radical optimist than ever before. It's like, it's like it shook me loose. And then I'm like, you know what? I am the radical optimist. How good can it get? Even if it doesn't seem good, I'm going to stick with that. And I'll just believe in it. And if a miracle happens, great. Well, a miracle did happen and it continues to happen. So still recovering. But working on a book with that much mental fog is an understatement. It was a mess. So I would be trying, really loving this book and trying to move it forward, but it's like feeling stupid. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it, but if you're a writer, you want to find the perfect word. I forget finding perfect words.
You just want to get done.
Like, just try to remember what sentence did you just read? Oh, let's read it again. Like, oh my gosh. And then it wasn't even just the typical things, but then I get the fun stuff that happens to those of us working in this field. If you work in the field of mind matter interaction, as you know, the fun things would happen to me where I'd spend hours writing the perfect paragraph, and then I'd come back to it the next day or so, and it's gone. I would be handwriting it. It's gone. I was trying to do everything I could to lock it into a reality, and I'm like, no. But I just I'd stay with how good can it get? Don't get angry. Let's just stay. It's all good. It's all good. That was just one reality. Let's write it again in this reality. And if I have to write it, sometimes I'd have to write something 3 or 4 times. But what I knew is I'm pushing up against consensus, collective reality, and consciousness. There's a lot of repression right now. There's a lot of what you might call downward force, repressive force.
Yeah.
And so I know that that's what I was up against. I knew it. And so I was dealing with all of that when I was working on this book. That's why it took so long. And then as I was getting mental clarity, as I miraculously started healing, which that was about 18 months in after the January 2020 initial fun time.
So let me ask you this. Did your angel speak to you at this time and give you any insights?
Basically, I have to be honest, I was just coping. So I had to cut my work hours down profoundly because I was sleeping so much. And so I would hear from my angels, but it was just they would kind of keep me on track for just what to do because my brain fog was terrible. It was so bad. If you wonder, what am I talking about? Like I'd have groceries delivered to the porch and I could not get them in from the porch to the kitchen in one go. It might take 3 hours. And then I'd be completely wiped out. And that was it for the day. And that's not even going shopping. That was someone else doing the shopping. It's like, it sounds like it's not an exaggeration. I once took a bath and I couldn't stand up because the heat, I think it did something to my body, but I just collapsed and crawled. And I had to go to bed because I was so tired. And I had barely been awake that day. So what's amazing is I could keep doing client sessions for that entire 18 months.
In bed?
Because I'd wake up, I'd get dressed, I'd be awake for like 5 hours, 6 hours, then like I'm wiped out. It was weird. But when doing writing in addition to the client coaching was really something. But I just did what I could, and I kept that how good can it get attitude. So it's just like when you're playing golf and the ball lands in the sand trap, you just try to keep a good attitude, because if you swear and get all upset, it's not going to get any better. So you want to be loving about the sand trap and about the ball and what a perfect day it is, even if it's super, super hot.
Yeah, I get it. Wow. Well, I'm so glad, and I'm sure the listeners are really glad that you're here with another book. So I know the Mandela Effect is a real phenomenon. You do as well. But what are your tips for living among non-Mandela affected people, which the kids today call NPCs? So how do we navigate NPCs in our lives?
Yeah, good question. Well, just realize that eventually they'll come around. Might not be in this lifetime. You might not see it, but it doesn't. I think it takes a lot of pressure off if you're not feeling like I have to wake them up. I'd ease off on that and just sort of greet people where they are. Chances are that they'll get an opportunity at some point. They'll be just like, what happened here? And if you happen to be there when they have seen something that doesn't make any sense to them, because what they remember is different than what supposedly has always been true, you can support them. You can say, like, yeah, that happens to me too. And just be there for them in those moments. But otherwise, I would not recommend pushing anything. Just be gentle. Just be mindful. Like, what would it be like for yourself if you weren't so certain that the Mandela effect and reality shifts and quantum jumping was real? If all that stuff seems like I don't know what that is, then it doesn't really help to push it. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah. Let them be part of the simulation, right? Just
Yeah,
work
we'll get
within.
there.
work within the simulation and navigate and play within the characters of the simulation and try not to, I guess, let go of the
Yeah.
control. Yeah. All
Right.
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 That's a good perspective. Now, in your newest book, you lead up to humanity's great awakening.
Yes.
Now, not all awakenings are smooth transitions, and it seems, as the Buddhist studies in me would say, we are going through some kind of purification, which is basically nasty skeletons uprooting to deal with and transition into our next phase, into a interstellar cosmology. So, can you explain your perspective on humanity's great awakening?
Yes. Well, we've been through several of them, so I think it's starting from there, even though people may not realize it. I think if they're Christian, then they might acknowledge Noah and the Great Flood. If they're indigenous, they might recognize that that's also a very old story of the indigenous peoples from every single continent around the world. And that's when it starts getting interesting. Like, really? They all have that flood story? Yes, they do. They
Mhm.
do. And in fact, they say, like the Hopi would say, we're in the fourth world right now. So if you start there, like, okay, so the world has ended 3 times already. Is that what you're saying? Yes, absolutely. And we don't need to get excited or worked up about it. We can just state that as a calm fact. And we know
Mhm.
that if we look at extinction record on the planet, lots of species have died off and come back. And there's evidence of floods actually. And anyway, so if you start there, then I think it's helpful to know, like, we've got some experience in this. I think that's a good thing. Like, third time's the charm. Maybe this was the smoothest, this last ending of the world where we survived all of that was a good one. And so now, when we're getting all the signs that the Hopi told us would be coming, and sure enough, they're there. We've
Mhm.
got the crisscross of wires in the sky, and extinct animals are coming back, and all the stuff that sounded like it. And it's happening. It's happening.
I really
They're
hope
all
Godzilla doesn't come back, honestly,
no,
and
but I
drag
would no,
maybe
but
some dragons. I don't know. I'm up in the air about that one.
yeah. But it's just the fact that that stuff is happening is an indicator. It's kind of like the thinning of the veils, if you want to call it that, or the realities are coming together, convergence of timelines. Lots of ways to look at it. And so I think it's a nodal point when this is happening, and it's hard for remote viewers to see past, like, even 2012, they couldn't see past that. Now we're in the thick of it. And some people are saying that there may be a magnetic pole reversal, magnetic excursion, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of talk about what this may look like. It doesn't really matter which variety of possible future we're talking about, because this time, what's different is humans themselves. We ourselves are part of playing this game. We are the players. We know that the physical body is the avatar. Some of us are meditating, and we know that we
Mhm.
have this, like you're talking star seeds and tolkos. We're aware that
We were player
we can.
one.
Yes,
We're player
yes,
one amongst the NPCs.
yeah. And it's
I love it.
for that movie Free Guy. I mean, he's like an NPC that becomes conscious and becomes
That
sentient. So
that
yeah,
is true too. Dolores Cannon, the author hypnotist of 40 plus years, she said in her books that you can awaken some NPCs, and then all of a sudden their spirit comes into them, and then they're like waking into like, what the heck is this? So she said it in her books as well. So that is a real concept. You know, the in Islam, there is a story about how the jinn can manipulate reality to play tricks on us, but they can't take away our memories as we shift between parallel realities and we become higher frequency, more conscious, and become incredible manifestors. So, what do you think about that concept in Islam? Is that kind of touching on Mandela effects?
yeah, it does sound like it, doesn't it? The thing about they can't take your memories away from you. It's sort of like, yeah, that's great. Because then that's the one thing to be certain of. Like, if you have an anchor memory, like I do for Tinkerbell, or you do for Richard Simmons and the Sweatband, all these things, and so many of them. But when you know, like, okay, I'm not imagining that. That's too real. So
Hmm.
therefore, if there is something playing tricks on me, and this gets into what are the jinn. but I think every culture has names for this, and
Mhm.
there are ideas about what kind of interference is that, and we could have a whole episode just about the interference patterns that occur. But
Yeah.
they can't necessarily mess with your memory, and so that's why it's so. I love that advice. Like, well, maybe they didn't give this as advice, but my advice would be trust your memories, because that isn't tampered with. I think in the West, in America, certainly, we're sometimes told like we should doubt our memories and we should go along with whatever is being told to us by experts. But I think in the last few years, a lot of us are questioning that. I certainly hope so. And so as we question everything, which is a great thing to do, yeah, definitely be a skeptic, question everything. You can even look at your memories and think like, is that real? And if you've got anchors that hold it in place, like I do for a Tinkerbell, like why would I remember exactly how she's flying in and exactly how she'd go ting and the
Yep.
sound and everything? How could
Yep.
I remember that if it never happened?
I remember in my watching it growing up. That was a iconic Disney
Yeah.
introduction.
Yes.
And yeah, it's just really funny. And then I don't know when it stopped, but my daughter, who's 9, also remembers Tinkerbell
Oh,
doing that
wow.
at the tip of the
It's so
castle, a Disney
memorable.
at the yeah. And
Oh, it's so
so
magic.
yeah, so we went to Disneyland. And she's like, "Yeah, we just need Tinkerbell to do." And I was like, "How do you know?" She's like, "Yeah, well, she always did that." And I was like, "So I can't," because a lot of these MEs happen, and you're trying to recall exact dates and time, and like when did you recall that or so forth. But
People
I
are
don't
going to
know if
remember different dates. The dates are
yeah,
not going to match because it's not an objective reality. It's a relationship. It's relational quantum mechanics. It's subjective. That means that each of us can have, like your 9-year-old can have that experience recently. Whereas for me, I haven't seen Tinkerbell do that fun thing in decades, maybe. But it's okay that it doesn't need to match up exactly because it's the thing I said about the interdimensional consciousness operating outside of time and subjectively for each one of us. That is really what's going on. And the message is important, like Pikachu's tail and Tinkerbell's wand and Richard
right,
Simmons' sweatband. It's like those are key clues. It's like,
yeah.
okay, what?
Well, Cynthia, tell us about the upcoming Mandela Effect conference in Nashville, Tennessee this November.
Yes, that's going to be November 7th through the 10th, and it's open for public to come. So if you are interested or anyone's interested, definitely come check it out. And you can still buy tickets, and it's going to be wonderful. We'll have keynote speakers Bill McKenna and Liz Larson talking about reality selection and working with. They'll even do a mini workshop at the event, so it's going to be super valuable. We'll have Candace Craw Goldman, she worked directly with
Oh,
Dolores
yeah.
Cannon. Yeah, you know her.
Uh-huh.
And we'll have a lot of other great speakers. We'll have one Dr. Labaito who did his PhD research on the Mandela effect, and he'll be
Mm.
presenting his thesis research from his doctoral dissertation. So that's going to be super cool. I'll be talking about the science of magical influence, tying in with some experiment that I was involved in this year with
Mm.
Institute of Noetic Sciences. I was one of 50 people that received an interferon device, which is
Mhm.
it's like you can influence an electron or a photon inside of a little
Right.
box.
Right.
So I'm just getting 10 runs to do that and, be able to show what the results are. I've seen the preliminary results so far, and if I get the final results between now and the conference, I'll be sharing that too. But Dean's done some amazing analysis of what happened when he had meditators, what kind of effects did they get versus what he called magicians, who are very good at influencing reality. And
Mhm.
maybe not too surprisingly, the magicians do quite a bit better. But why is that and what's going on? And so that's what I'll be delving into.
Oh, that sounds like a great panel. And if you are not able to go to it, they're going to have it on rewind, right? So that they can still access the information on the website and watch the
Yeah.
videos and
We'll
okay.
have it on our channel, right? And we do live streams every month. So our channel on YouTube is International Mandela Effect Conference. I know it's a mouthful, but it's out there. And so I think you have to type the whole thing in because if you type in IMEC, somehow that stands for something having to do with a monetary thing. And that's not us. We're the International Mandela Effect Conference. And we
Mhm.
have a website, imec.world. So that absolutely is the best place to go for the information on everything we're
Awesome.
doing. Yeah, get on
Awesome.
the news mailing list.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put that in the show description. So if you are not able to attend, but you want to review the panels afterwards, I'll put that on the link there so you can go there and you can still get caught up on ME World. So last thing, do you have a last message for fifth dimensional people of Earth?
Yeah, keep envisioning how good things can get, and do it from the place you remember, not just what other people seem to be putting out there. Because those of us that are kind of anchored into that it's like God consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the Shambhala. We'll bring it when enough of us are here that remember that and know that we can actually live from that place. It's going to smooth a lot of things out, just like it does one-on-one when we show up in a situation. Or like we just did with that Cat 5 going to a Cat 2.
Yeah, well, I can go on and on with you about different things and kind of go into like different topics. But Miss Cynthia Sue Larson, thank you again for continuing to contribute your insights as we all rise to higher frequencies here on Spaceship Earth. So for more information about Miss Cynthia Sue Larson's offerings, please visit her website, realityshifters.com, and her Amazon author profile, and of course, imec.world. Those links are going to be in the show description. So please visit those. And thank you kindly to our listeners for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings. Mwah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the fifth dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.